Good morning or evening, depending on which side of the pond you're on, and welcome to an extra special post-match edition of Across the Pitch, where today Arran and I are joined by an extra special guest, not only one of the biggest fans of our show, but also one of the biggest fans of Accrington Stanley anywhere. We're very excited to have a chance to sit down and chat with Tony Robinson, who is originally from Accrington, now spends his time over in Canada and is a member of the North American Supporters Club and helping us get that going. But every year he does travel back to the UK and visit some games, and today he did attend the Accrington versus Sunderland match, and we're going to sit down and have a little chat about how things are looking at the Wham Stadium and how things are looking with the club. So welcome, Tony. Really happy to finally get to sit down and chat with you.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks, fellas. It's an honor to be on your show, and I feel a bit of pressure now with that introduction. Because I actually didn't recognize myself when you were giving that. So thank you for the kind words, and yes, it's a pleasure to be with you and talking everything Accrington Stanley.
You know, you didn't do your intro, Phil. I think you should do something like where the show for people who think Pookie is a Canadian dish with fries and gravy.
But yeah, the French fries and gravy. I mean, you can't go wrong with that, can you? You know.
No, and you throw some cheese curd in, and then you've got all the food groups covered, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Perfect. What can be wrong with that? And of course, so you're in Canada right now, aren't you, Tony? So you made the trek back all the way from Canada to go and see, to the UK, and I'm assuming not just to see the Ackie game today, but you did. You saw the Ackie game today.
Yes. We got in a few days ago, and I actually, went to the match earlier today than normal. I like to go I do the hospitality package because you get a nice meal, you get to sit down and talk to people, and in fact, John Coleman came in and talked about the team selection. I even got a chance to say hello to Andy Holt, which is you just can't get that experience at sort of say a Premier League at Burnley or Chelsea or Arsenal, wherever. It's quite unique to do that, so that was quite exciting. And but I did spend some time early on while I got there to go walk around the fan zone and look at the work that they've done in putting up the Hall of Fame for the players and the builders. And as I say, I did get a chance to see the across the pitch sign. So
yes, yeah,
it's facing the bar, so it's an excellent spot to be in.
Oh, good.
Peter really took care of us there.
He really did. I'll tell you what, that's our spot there, isn't it? Right there.
Now you were saying that when you were walking through the Hall of Fame when we were talking before the show a little bit, when you were walking through the Hall of Fame, and then just the new pitch and all of the new changes that are happening at the stadium. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I really noticed when I arrived was the quality of the pitch. I mean, they have leveled it out because it used to run down ever slow. Well, I bet you it was probably a foot out of level from the Clayton end to the away end, and where the dressing and change rooms are located, and that's where they used to have the problem with the drainage. But now they've raised the pitch, leveled it off, and it's as I say, I would look at that pitch and I would put it up against any of the pitches that you see on the television for the Premier League. I think Buzzer Cook, the groundsman there, has done an outstanding job, and it
looks fantastic on TV. It really comes through. It's not even like watching the same stadium as last year.
No, and they've changed some of the seats, and I mean, you're actually when you sit in the stadium, and I know it's only sort of I think 5,500 capacity, but it's you've got feel when the crowd. I was over. I'm a little disappointed in the crowd, but it was over 4,000. But it just the atmosphere from that many people. As I say, it felt like you were in the game, not only watching it, but you felt a part of the action,
Tony, before we started, you said that, it is a different ground there, and the pitch used to have a little sort of dip to one end, I think you were saying, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, now that's not there anymore. So do you think perhaps, maybe Accrington's lost a little bit of home ground advantage by that sort of slope not being there?
Well, it does, yeah, because they used to like to move the ball side to side, and the ball is moving true. And I was finding today that their second and third passes were, some unforced errors. Where as before, I don't think they would move the ball quicker because with the pitch not being true, they wanted to sort of not take the chance of overplaying the ball, but move
Right.
the ball to a player. But now they seem to be wanting to play out from the back and play more control. And it's they've got to get used to their pitch, and that's probably you're right. Probably the disadvantage is that the pitch is so true that they have to get used to it now.
Right. Interesting, really interesting. And
Now,
by the way, just so you know, we are well aware of the pain of early season working it out from the back changes. Being Phoenix Rising fans, we were up in arms at the beginning of the year, but we're not anymore. So keep the faith, man. Keep the faith. I know you will.
yeah, I mean, I think that's really a lot of what I'm seeing on the field is I'm seeing a lot of talent out there, a lot of new talent. And speaking of playing out from the back, they did try a little bit different formation. It was actually something that I had brought up in my article is that I thought that they might try to play five players at the back. They did end up playing the four. It was a 4-1-3-2 that they played today. And what did you think about that formation and the lineup that they had out there today, Tony?
Well, I thought they seemed yeah, they did change systems a couple of times, especially when the subs came on. And at one point, they moved Pritchard to the left, and they moved Clark on the right. And almost when you first looked, it almost like they were trying to go with three up front, but then they'd drop some back. And I think I think Coleman is still trying to find the combination, the system that will work with the two fellas up front with Bishop and Dion Charles. I think Dion Charles has got talent, but unfortunately they just couldn't get the service to them today because the Sunderland took possession of the ball and then obviously just cut the supply off to the two strikers.
It was a bit of a lightning start to the game today, wasn't it, Tony? So, fifth minute, Jordan Clark scored for Stanley. 2 minutes later, Sunderland gets to the back of the net via Gooch. That's crazy. What a crazy start to the game. What happened there? I mean, yeah.
Well, yeah. The first one they scored the goal and I mean they for the first 6 minutes they were extending, and that quick goal really sort of took the wind out of their sails to some degree. And then the second, when it went 2-1, I think Stanley still were having a go and had possession of the ball. But then when Stanley hit the crossbar, and then they come back within minutes, and then Sunderland went 3-1 up. If Stanley would have scored and made it 2-2, I think that would have changed the complexity of the game, and I think we would have seen might have seen a better result at that stage.
It was remarkable how level the team stats were in the game. So Stanley had 10 shots, Sunderland 11, both with 4 shots on target. Stanley actually had more possession, 52%. I mean, remarkably even. Like even the passes, Stanley had 384, Sunderland 378. I mean, there's besides the scoreline. I think you're probably right, mate.
It was a very evenly played game, and what it really came down to is a couple of mental errors,
Right.
especially on the Gooch goal. I don't know if you saw a highlight of that yet or not, but it really was a very pretty goal. It was a one-time volley, but
Yes.
at the same time, there wasn't a red shirt within 10 yards, so it's not as hard to make those when you're standing there by yourself.
I think he's still trying to find the right combination on the back four, and I was impressed with the fellow that come on.
Elise was amazing.
Yes. I think when he come on for Hughes, he actually has. I think a little more pace, a little more control to make something happen coming out of the back. Where and I noticed
He's
the difference.
Big
then.
and physical too.
They've got some tall players. I mean,
yeah. I mean, they've got Sykes, and now they've got Apaku. He looked really good, and then they brought in Elise, and Elise and Apaku are both big physical center backs, and when they were both on there together, they were really kind of bossing the Sunderland front line, and guys like Gooch, for instance, just were kind of too small to make a difference once those two were in there, just kind of shutting them down.
Yeah, and going back to Aaron's point about the stats. I was actually surprised when I read those stats because I didn't think, being at the match, that the stats were that close. And because I thought the passing was the passing accuracy for Sunderland was better than Stanley, but maybe that's because I was sort of watching Stanley a little bit closer. But
right,
I thought the stats. I didn't think the match was. When I looked at the stats and looked at the watching the match live, I was surprised with that.
Yeah, I get that, Tony. I'm a bit like that myself. I tend to be more critical of my teams than I am of the opposition teams, and yeah, quite often I'm surprised by the stats. Like, oh, really? We played all right? Oh, okay, cool. It was just me.
I was just going to say, I think our friend lived up to his name, Mr. Excitement, because he does make you sit on the edge of the seat. And when he come out to the one time, and if he hadn't got that ball, it would have been another goal. And then he let it one go underneath him, and then he did scramble back because he did get a piece of it. But he does. I think the name Mr. Excitement is very apropos, really.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys that, like you said, he'll have you on the edge of the seat, but more often than not, he makes a play. And I know that you're a bit of a hockey fan, and there's a goalkeeper or goaltender, or they're called in hockey, that was pretty well known in the 1990s and actually played some minor league games here in Phoenix. Do you remember a guy named Byron Defoe? He played for the Bruins some.
Yes, I do remember Defoe. Yes,
And
I do remember him.
He was one of those guys too, where he'd always be on the edge of the seat. And I just remember he played for the Phoenix Roadrunners when I used to go to those games here before the Coyotes moved here in his minor league days. And he was a guy that even if the puck was on the other end of the ice, sometimes you'd still be watching him. And Evtimov, it's just that same kind of guy where he's that rare goalkeeper where we talk about here in Phoenix, like Zach Lubin kind of gets lost in the mix, even though he's got an 80% save percentage and 13 clean sheets. But Evtimov, he is not going to get lost. That guy's on the field.
Yeah, he's obviously very, very talented. He's very athletic, But I think the playing from the back, where Coleman seems to want to try and do that now, because of the quality of the pitch, they want us to be able to move the ball, from the use of keeper basically as almost in a sweeper role. And I think he's adapting to that, and he has the talent to do that. But it does make you a bit nervous when there's a couple passes back to him, and then he has to make a sort of a quick pass out. And I think it's going to take some time, but he's certainly one that keeps your interest anyway.
Yeah, he's really done a good job. I think that you can see the progress, and like I had written in one of my articles a couple of weeks ago, I think that after there was that own goal, I forget who the own goal was against. I think it was against Fleetwood, maybe, when he threw the ball out and it came off Hughes' leg right back into the goal. After that happened, I think some things kind of clicked with him where you see he's waiting that extra half second surveying the field before he tries to clear out the ball.
Yes, I think so. And I think he will improve. And I as I said, I think if Coleman can settle on a back four, and with him taking Hughes off, because very rarely did you see Hughes being substituted. I'm just wondering if he's at that stage now where he's thinking that he may have to make a change on that back four, because they are conceding goals, and he has to do something to solidify on the back, because in the midfield I think they're going to be okay, because midfield play today, I was impressed with Finlay. I think Finlay, as compared to last season, has raised his game, and he was, from my perspective, Stanley's man of the match. I thought he when he got the ball, he made the play. He seemed to be able to find the open man, and I thought he was played really well today.
I agree, and I also thought that Jordan Clark, he's looked really good. Obviously, he got the goal. He's had 2 goals in 2 weeks now, so that's encouraging. Pritchard, he's a guy that's looking better every week. And along the back line, I mean, I don't necessarily know, like you said, who the 4 are, because there is so much talent back there. I mean, you've got Sykes, you've got Johnson, you've got all these new guys, Apaku, Elise, like you said, you've got Hughes. So the back line, it's very unlike Arsenal. The back line is the strength, but like you said, at the same time, they haven't managed a clean sheet yet, and that's in spite of, as we said, the way that the goalkeeping has been good, but it just seems like it's these mental errors. The other thing is it seems to me like maybe they're a team that kind of goes to sleep at times, and that's where if you look at all of the matches, the goals seem to happen in the 10-minute spurt, and then nothing else after that.
Yeah, I think they've. I know what you mean, because that the mental errors and the unforced errors that really you can't make those against a team like Sunderland because of the players they have. I mean, they basically, when Stanley made a mistake in their own end or in their own third, Sunderland, made them pay, were clinical, whereas Accrington at the other end, they might get an opportunity, but just wasn't as clinical as Sunderland. And you could see the difference in the teams. Although the stats show it was quite an even match, you could see at moments when it counted to get the goal, the difference between Sunderland and Accrington.
Aaron, you had mentioned the other day we had a discussion about cohesive units, and also the beginning of the show you mentioned about the Phoenix Rising and how they struggled a little bit. Do you feel like it's probably just a matter of that Sunderland is ahead of Accrington right now in terms of having played more together and the talent is more on level?
I would absolutely agree with that. I feel, it's been a rough start for Stanley. Let's be honest. They've got 5 points out of 7 matches. They've got 1 win and 2 draws. But I don't see that staying like that. I mean, basically, what's happened is you've gone and brought in a whole other club and gone and transplanted it into Accrington there, haven't you? Because you've got basically, you know what I mean? You've got new players, 15, 16 new players, I think it is, isn't it?
16, I believe.
Yeah,
now.
yeah. You've got a brand new pitch and brand new surroundings there. I mean, it's all changed there at Accrington. This is going to take a little while for this to settle in. Good thing for Ackie is that League One is a long season, and I think you'll find that they will get more cohesive as the season goes along, and they certainly won't be in that position where they are now. Come 42 games in.
One thing I didn't know, on the back of the program, they list all the players that are on each team, and generally, always in the past, Accrington, if you looked at compared the list of players, Accrington's list was always shorter than the other team. And today, Stanley's list was 4 or 5 players longer than Sunderland.
Right. Interesting.
And John Coleman came in and actually spoke in the hospitality and about one of the biggest things was the toughest things he said was picking his bench, because he said he had to tell some quality players that they wouldn't even make the bench. So I think he's got a good problem. It's just now finding you've got the ingredients. He's just trying to find the right mixture to make a nice cake.
Yep, that's right.
Love that analogy. Love it.
It's true, and I take heart because as I said earlier, being a Phoenix Rising fan was if I had hair, I would have pulled it all out, because the beginning of the season it was a vast change. It was a big change in the squad, change in the coach, and a change in tactics. And honestly, it was quite unenjoyable. But within a few games, they turned that around and they started working together as a squad. I think that's going to happen with you guys too, with Aki.
Yeah, I think, and I think Phil, you made a mention in one of your articles about the number of games now between Sunderland and Accrington in the last 8 months, and I think that had a play. I think that had a play on the number of people at the ground today, because the weather was perfect for a football match, and I think that was just and this says a lot about how far Accrington have come, because it's like the thrill is worn off. And you lose 3-1 to Sunderland, who 2 seasons ago in the Premier League, and people are disappointed. So the expectations now for Stanley are to the point where when you lose 3-1 to Sunderland, it's not like, oh, well, that's what we played Sunderland. It's, well, it's disappointing. So that shows how far it's come.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's actually a lot of what I was trying to get towards with the section in my article yesterday, when I was kind of breaking down that the odds makers really thought that Accrington's chances of beating Sunderland were only 10% less than their chances of beating Bristol. So I mean, that tells you right there that they think that these are clubs that, in spite of size, are on the same level. And I think Accrington really did have what it takes to win today. I'll tell you what this game kind of reminded me of, and this was something the commentators on iFollow kind of alluded to also, is that sometimes you can come out and get that goal too early and kind of wake the sleeping giant. It reminds me a lot of the 2006 Super Bowl between the Indianapolis Colts and the Chicago Bears, where everybody just thought, okay, that the Colts and Peyton Manning, they're just going to wipe the floor with Rex Grossman and the Bears. Bears come out, they take the opening kickoff all the way back for a touchdown. Everybody's like, whoa, wait, maybe the Bears are in it. But then all it really did was kind of wake up Peyton Manning and that sleeping giant. And that's kind of what I think happened today, where that early goal just kind of woke up the sleeping giant.
Yeah, I think and it's strange to say this, but you can score too early in a match, and because I mean,
Right.
when you score in the first 5 minutes of a match, I would say there's a lot of times where you don't come out on the positive end of a result,
Right.
and the fact that Sunderland scored so quickly afterwards, if Stanley could have got some control, kept the play and kept the score at 1-0 for better part of the first half. But unfortunately, that second goal came back, and when when Sunderland scored their first goal at 7 minute mark, you just could feel not only from the players, but you could feel it in the stand and in the crowd that
Yeah.
that didn't last long.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's kind of devastating
Yeah.
when that happens. Tony, I
Yeah.
want to go back to something that you touched on there. So it's Aki's second year in League One. I feel like there's been a bit of a change in mentality. There's bigger expectations for sure, but there's also been a change of mentality from the fans. It seems like you're not good enough to be. It's not good enough to be just battlers anymore. You're expecting more from your team. And so when you were saying about that, disappointment about being beaten by Sunderland, that's surely a good thing, isn't it?
Well, I mean, 2 years ago, you would have said, Accrington's playing Sunderland. Just to be on the same pitch is a big thrill, and little old Stanley should be happy you're on the same pitch. But as I say, I think because of the way the season ended last season and the players bringing in, I think there's expectations. Well, as I say, to finish in the top half, but there's expectations that Stanley should be able to beat these teams. And I think, like Phil said, I don't think that far off. A mistake here and there today, and that game could have been completely different. And so Stanley, they're not that far off from Sunderland. It's as I say, it just seems to be that people are talking about, well, we lost today and they feel down, and yet you should realize we're playing Sunderland. That's something to be excited about, as opposed to going away with your shoulders drooped down and crying into your beer.
Yeah.
You should be pleased.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
with the pleased that we're playing Sunderland.
Yeah, it wasn't like they were outclassed today. Like we've been saying, the stat sheet. If you just looked at only the stat sheet except goals, you would even think maybe Stanley outplayed Sunderland. And I would say in the second half that Stanley definitely outplayed Sunderland. It was really just those, like you said, those couple of mental lapses. Really every. The sad thing about today's is that every goal that happened for Sunderland is one that started because of a mental error or some kind of a lapse or breakdown. There weren't any of those goals where you just say, well, tip your hat to Sunderland, couldn't do anything about that one.
Yeah, I think, and some of the unforced errors that Stanley made, but the way that Sunderland moved the ball, and I think some of the passing, they moved on the counter attack. They were very, very precise and very quick on the counter. Stanley, and I think in the second half, Sunderland might have been playing back a bit and allowing Accrington to control the play and moving the ball outside. They couldn't seem to pierce and get the ball through to the strikers. It's just because Sunderland were covering them so well, and I think the possession factor. Then you can look at the stats and say Stanley had good possession, but it was possession that wasn't sort of in the box.
A lot of side passing at the midfield and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I know Coleman wants to have possession at home, and it's just that they need to be just that far, and it wasn't. And there was spots there where they could have had a one or two goals. Stanley, it just didn't seem to want to bounce for them today. Whereas the rub of the green seemed to go Sunderland's way. They punished Stanley for the mistakes, where Stanley unfortunately weren't able to punish Sunderland when they made a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, there was at least 2 times that the ball was in a position where somebody should have put it in for Stanley and didn't. And yeah, that's exactly what it comes down to. You hit the nail on the head right there. Is Sunderland capitalized on their opportunities, and Stanley only capitalized on 1 out of, say, 4 opportunities that they probably had.
I'd be more concerned if Stanley weren't getting the chances or weren't creating chances, but they were creating chances all throughout the match.
Oh yeah.
So I think you have to be positive from that
Yes.
that point of view. And it's not an embarrassment to lose at home 3-1 to Sunderland.
Yeah. And you're right, Tony. There are a lot of takeaways, a lot of positive takeaways from that match.
Yep.
Great stuff. So how is it, just moving away from Aki just a little bit, how is it being back there? Is it cold? It must be getting cold this time of year, eh?
Actually, today, I think it was about 21 degrees Celsius. So, I mean, it was a beautiful day. In fact, all I had on was my Accrington Stanley shirt. I didn't need a jacket. And I'm maybe that's because I've got some Canadian blood in me now that I don't.
Yeah.
Because you could see some of the locals have got their coats on and that, and for me it was a beautiful day. It's nice to be back. It's nice to get into a pub and have a nice real ale and enjoy it. I met up with Darren today and had a chat with him. Peter Latham, saw him and had a nice visit with Peter. Got my lifetime membership today for the supporters club.
Oh, did you get your North American pins?
I did think, and I wanted to say, on behalf of my wife and I, thank you very much, because apparently they're the only 2 in captivity in the UK.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, we made sure that you had them, and you might need to go into hiding now that it's going to be public that you have a couple.
Well, I'm going to have to lock them away in the safe because I don't want them being stolen, because there was a lot of people who showed them today, and they were very impressed with the pin, and it's a nice pin, and
it came out fantastic, and it really it was your idea that kind of came together as the final design. I also do want to let folks know that I am actually going to be shipping 25 of the pins back to Peter so that they will be available in the UK shortly.
Yeah, he did mention that, because I know there's been interest, but
yes,
the one thing I liked about what your process behind the design of the pin was being able to put the 2 flags together, like joining the 2 countries, Canada and the States, and then the common factor for the supporters club overlapping and bringing them together is Accrington Stanley. So I think the thought process behind the pin means a lot, because it's not just a pin versus 2 teams playing. It's actually the thought process that went behind and the meaning of the pin, plus the pleasing to the eye.
Yeah, good stuff, Phil. That was all you, mate. And I've got to say, I get a bit of a kick out of it, because that's Accrington Stanley history now. That's great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're the first ones to ever have an official supporters club over here. So yeah, making history. And speaking of history, you are number 13 in the actual supporters club. So you've always been a part of history.
Yeah, I joined back probably when the supporters club first started. I joined, and as a matter of fact, my number, because I'm a lifetime member, I've been bumped now from 13 to 54.
Oh no! What have they done?
But in a positive note, the 54, I like that number because it's the year I was born. So I think there was a good the plan to go from 13 to 54. I'll accept it, because it's a number that I will remember.
Well, there you go. and tell us about the lifetime membership and that pin. I actually haven't seen one of those yet.
It's I'll take a picture and I'll post it on the Facebook page for Across the Pitch. It's a nice a nice pin, a circle in shape with the supporters club, and then underneath a lifetime member. So I wore that with pride today because there was two or three other fellows I saw with them, and it's I think it's £60 for a lifetime membership. I think because now I'm a senior citizen, I got the senior discount, which I'm happy to take.
Yeah, and then I think it's £100 if you are 60 and under, and £60 if you're 60 and over.
Yes, correct. And I wish he would have brought that in 5 years ago. I would have saved some money, but I was happy to part with my £60 today to help the cause. And one of the things I don't know if Peter did mention, and I'll just throw this in. There's a grassy area in behind the fan zone near the offices, and they're looking at making that into sort of a memorial garden for a little path and seats, and you could put a plaque up for people that have passed away that are Stanley fans. So sort of a memorial garden, which is, I think, it's a great idea. That's great. And adds to what the supporters club are doing. This is a project that the supporters club is going to take on.
Well, that's exactly the type of thing that makes Accrington Stanley different from any other team, as far as I'm concerned. Is just that extra mile to show how much the fans and the supporters mean to the club, and great stuff. I really, and I just can't say enough about Peter Latham either, and the job that he does. I mean, I will tell you, I guarantee you there is not another supporters club out there that has a guy that does as much as Peter does for Accrington.
I have to agree. The way his precision, his organizational skills, and the quality of his work and commitment and his passion, is really unrivaled. And the supporters club wouldn't not be where it is today if it wasn't for Peter. And the same on the same token, if you look at from the club's perspective, the same thing I have to say with Andy Holt. So those two fellows coming together brought both organizations up to a higher level, which Stanley's never seen before. I was talking, I got the chance to speak to Andy Holt today, and he even introduced us to the local MP. I mean, how many times would you get to see a chairman that would introduce you to a local politician? It's
just usually loggerheads, those two, aren't they?
Let's go with one last question. Why don't you go ahead and go with a last question here, Aaron, before we wrap up?
What made you think I had a last question, Phil? Actually, I do have a question.
Oh, okay.
So, the Canadian Soccer League has launched recently. Have you managed to go and see any of the games? And if so, what do you think of them?
I haven't been able to, but I want to go see now that I'm next season. York 9 is only about 20 kilometers away, so I'll try and go and see them. I think the quality of play, is surprising people, because I didn't think people expected it to be as good as it is. I mean, it's probably, I've seen it on the television. I would say it's probably League One at best at the moment.
Okay.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Where would you say it compares to the USL Championship?
I don't think it's in the same area at the moment. But I think you've got to, when you start a league, you can't start it and then expect to be at the MLS or the USL level. I think you've got to start at the lower level, which they are doing. And it does remind me a lot of League One in the sense, because of the size of the stadium, the attendance and the thing and the like. But I think they're finding it. The plans that they had in place for expansion I think it's things have slowed up, and I don't think there's news coming out of the league as quickly as they initially planned. So I've been trying to follow up and find out what the expansion plans are, because they had grand plans to increase, but with 7 teams in the league of country that size,
It's
you can't.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't survive. Halifax can't keep going to Vancouver Island.
It's remote.
When you're only on a crowd of 5,000, the math won't work. So they need to
Right.
add teams, or they're probably. And I don't like it myself, but they may end up going to 2 conferences, East and West, like they do in the States.
That would make a lot of sense. I mean, Halifax to Toronto, no, not Toronto, sorry, Halifax to Vancouver must be the equivalent of going from New York to London. Like, they're that far apart, surely. You can't be doing that every week.
No, it's. I think, as I said in the article, I think it was the 3rd longest trip in a league in the world, and I think Indonesia was number 2, and I think Perth to New Zealand was number 1.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, you're right. I actually forgot about that. Hello.
Well, Wellington to Perth, I think that was the longest.
Yeah. And sometimes they're not worth setting up for either.
I did watch the Hamilton Forge, and as I mentioned in the article, I think they named the teams to identify with the region. And it's funny, after the article was published, I noticed in the newspapers the standings are starting to be published with the city name as opposed to the team name. So I think they're realizing they need to make a connection between Hamilton Forge and Hamilton and Calvary and the team like Valor. People didn't know what that is, but they're putting in Winnipeg now to show. So I think they're realizing they need to make a connection for people.
Yeah. I mean, you said York 9, and you could have thrown me, I don't know. I had no idea what they were, but they're Toronto, right?
No. Yes, York 9 is just, it's north of Toronto. It's in the region that I do live, but York is a region, it's not a town or a city.
Yeah. And that's interesting. They wouldn't have gone with Toronto. I like York 9. I get that idea. I love Toronto, by the way. That's one of my favorite cities in the whole world. But it's I didn't know that. I didn't know they were Toronto or Toronto-ish.
Yeah, it's there's the GTA, of course, that goes around around Toronto, and this is the York 9 is to sort of represent that region. But it's a bit of a unless you live in that region, it is hard to establish. And I think you need not to only establish yourself to the region, but if you want to be a national league, a Premier League in a country, I think you have to have some identification with the rest of the country too.
Absolutely. Well, I think I've found myself a Canadian Premier League team. Go York 9. What do they call themselves? Are they called the Yorkies by any chance? Because that'd be cute.
I think one of the nicknames was the 9 Stripes, which I'm not sure that's a name that will stick, but it's they've got 9 bars on their logo to represent 9 regions. I think we need to do some work on their nicknames.
Okay, all right.
All right. Well, I think that I need to look around and maybe find my Canadian team. I'll have to go through your article again. But before we wrap up, Tony, you're going to be in England here for you said about another month and a half, I believe, and you're going to be sending us over some reports. What other games are you going to be seeing while you're over there?
Well, next Saturday I'll be at Blackpool.
Nice.
Actually, Stanley Blackpool's coming in, which again is another former Premier League team coming in, and
just
so
barely,
that's good.
though, Tony, just barely.
Yeah, well, yes, just barely. They'll bring a good crowd, so it should be a good crowd next week. It's a tough match, so I'm going to see that one. I'm at I'll see Oxford, Gillingham, and also another good team I'll be seeing was Ipswich. So I'm going to see some quality football.
Right
I'm here till the end, first week of November, or until the money runs out.
Well, read my match articles and bet accordingly, and your money will be lasting longer.
Yeah.
It's going to take you 100 years, but yeah, okay.
Well, Tony, we really, really appreciate you coming on, and we really enjoyed, like I said, finally getting to sit down and chat with you on the phone here, and we're looking forward to hearing everything from the different games while you're over in England. Give us a prediction on where you think that Stanley will finish in the table at the end of the season, and then we'll call it a day here.
I'm looking at something similar to last year, maybe a couple of spots above, but I think they'll be safe. I think they're a bottom half team, but at the top half of the bottom half, if that makes any sense, Yeah, I don't see them unless they they gel and they can go on a streak. I'd say mid table is a fair position where they should end up.
I couldn't agree more. I'd say that 10th would be a good goal for this season.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yes. I have to agree, Phil. I think if they're 10th, that'll be a tremendous season. They certainly have the potential. It's just now I think it's up to Coleman to bring all those new players together. Find the formation, find the right lineup, and I think he's getting there. And it's I think before I leave, I'll see a more consistent Stanley and a team that we're going to expect to see as the season goes on.
Agreed. Absolutely agree with him.
If anybody can do it, it'd be John Coleman.
Absolutely. He did have his moments today with the fourth official, but a match wouldn't be like that without John Coleman. The Liverpool in him, the Liverpoolian in him.
I think that had something to do with the amount of stoppage time they were adding on at the end.
Yes.
Not enough or too much.
He was wanting them to add on more because, Sunderland kind of went into that Marino ball, kicking the ball out of bounds kind of thing.
Yeah, and they did fall down, and of course when you got the lead and you're down on the ground, the recovery period is not quite as quickly as if you wanted to get it back into the match,
Yeah.
So, anyways, good experience, a very good day at the match. Result wasn't what I was hoping for, but the overall experience to watch it and be there live is well worth the experience.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. Still early on, and I think a lot of promise. And like you said, at the end of the day, not every week are we going to be playing Sunderland.
No. I'm still going to be able to go out tonight and have a pint at the pub and not cry into my pint.
Right. We should probably let you do that because it's probably getting on over there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's almost time to head down to the pub.
Right on.
Well, we'll let you get down to the pub and drink one for us because it's still early over here, not quite noon yet.
That's all right. I'll have one. What's your beer up there? I don't suppose it's a Fuller's. That's a London beer, isn't it? No,
the one that they have at Stanley is called Aki Ale, and it's by a local brewery called Boland Breweries, and it's a really nice craft ale and just full of flavor and it was a really nice pint. I really enjoyed that today.
That's the one we've been trying to get over here for over a year now.
Andy said he was going to send some over to us, and he never did.
Maybe you can smuggle some back through customs for us.
I'll see if I can get it in my wife's luggage for the trip home.
Good luck with that.
And like I said, you said you're flying back over here November. That would be right around the time of the USL Championship game. So feel free to make a detour out to Phoenix, and your ticket will be on us.
I'll check with the boss.
Yeah. That's a bit of a trek. I've done that. That's
Yeah.
It'll take you all day to get here, but that's all right, man.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. We'll talk to you soon, Tony. Thanks again.
Thanks for coming on the show, mate.
Have a
Pleasure
great
to have
day.
you aboard.
Thanks, fellas.
You
Cheers,
too.
mate.
Cheers.